And of course, we've got our team on the ground bringing you the latest on today's top story. In fact, there's only one story that matters in South Africa today. So I'm joined by Heidi Giokos once again, Bafedile Moerane, and eNCA anchor Gareth Edwards as well. Heidi, let me start with you because you just did something that concluded now. Of course, we know that the death toll now stands at 73. We have been told that it might actually increase as firefighters continue or emergency services personnel continue to go to the different floors. But you just finished an interview with Herman Mashaba in terms of some of the things that, or the interventions that he tried as mayor, and he's saying to you that he was, stunned.
Yes, he's basically indicated, Masego, that he was criticized when he was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, speaking about how he had identified over 600 buildings that needed urgent attention and that were basically hijacked. And this is just one of them. He spoke about the fact that this is nothing but a drop in the ocean, and it's the tip of the iceberg in terms of what is really going on. Speaking about how these conditions that people are subjected to basically are inhumane. And that is the honest truth, Masego, because we're hearing with this particular hijacked building, 73 people have lost their lives. Out of the 73, we know it's 12 minors, so 12 children, the youngest possibly being just a year old. And we have also been told that it's been very difficult for people who were inside the building trying to get out, because we've been told that because it was hijacked, obviously the exit doors or the emergency doors were locked. We know that there were a number of security gates in and around the actual apartment block, so it was very difficult for there to be any sort of movement, which could possibly be an indication of people wanting to get out, trying to get out, but not able to do so because of the setup of this hijacked building. But Herman Mashaba really saying that if there is no political will, this problem will continue unabated, speaking about the fact that people really need to understand how serious this problem is. He speaks about how he's been taken on by various political parties, being called all sorts of names, and he says this is a clear indication of what really is happening in the city of Johannesburg. And again, at the center of all of this, Masego, is those that are now needing to pick up their lives, that have lost their children, lost their husband, lost their mothers, lost their fathers, because that is the tragedy in all of this, that this building was just left. It's a hijacked building. There's clearly an informal settlement that's happening inside here, and people were left to continue living here, and nothing was done about it by the city. Yes, we understand that there has been an issue of litigation, and it's made the city put it in a difficult position, but surely more should have been done, given that now you have this tragedy.
And Heidi, there's actually just a snippet of a conversation that the team had on the ground with Elias Mawela. Of course, that is the provincial commissioner of the SAPS here in Gauteng. Let's just have a listen quickly to what he said about this phenomenon or crisis when it comes to buildings in Johannesburg.
The municipality, they have a component called the GFIS. And the last report we got from the GFIS, they've estimated over 600 buildings, which are abandoned, derelict, ownerless, and so forth. So it's a process. Firstly, the deeds office, they must establish who are the owners, be held accountable. If they no longer want those buildings, let the city appropriate those buildings. But the problem is that what do we do with those who are in that building? Obviously, the city must find an alternative accommodation for them, whether thereafter they will decide whether they demolish or they renovate or whatever thing they do. But for us, law enforcement, keep on rating. Anyone committing crime will be arrested. Undocumented person in those buildings will be arrested. But we can't shut it down, that building.
Bafedile, let me come to you. Of course, you're on the other side of the building, and you were telling us a little earlier on that although the emergency response team were on the scene there at corner Delvis and Albert Street for quite a while, at some point you said that they were starting to retreat. Does that mean that their job there is done and the death toll stays at 73 for now?
Certainly, Maseho, at this point in time, the total number of bodies that have been confirmed by the officials in government, it is 73 at this point. But however, at this point in time, we are seeing pathology and forensic officials having to continue with their job here with these bodies that have been retrieved in this abandoned building. We're seeing a number of officials having to descend down to the crime scene here. At this point, I'm being joined by Democratic Alliance Legislature member, Mr. Solim Sianga. Thank you so much for joining us here at eNCA. Your reaction to what really transpired, such a pandemonium in the early hours of the morning, 73 bodies having to be removed in this building?
Well, first of all, we want to pass our deepest felt condolences to the families of the ones that have lost their loved ones, in this unnecessary, disaster that has transpired here. This is a Joburg property, a heritage building that, when we started a number of years ago to then say, let's try to start reclaiming some of these properties, we were met with a lot of opposition, where people are then pushing back and saying, well, you cannot do that, you are anti-black, you are this, you are that. Us trying to avoid situations like this, us saying that you cannot have a situation where a building that is not suitable for human inhabitation is allowed to continue to house human beings like the manner that we see. This is the results that you then get. But this is not the only building. If you look at that building next door, the one next door and two behind us, there's again a time bomb that is waiting to go off. And this is something that cannot be allowed to then continue. Where is the Human Rights Commission? Where is the Human Rights Commission? The same commission that every time when we try to remove people out of harm, they then come with interdicts and say you cannot move people away from these areas. Yet when there's a disaster, they're nowhere to be found. We want to know what is their role in this instance. We've tried to remove people away from front lines. We've tried to remove people away from such areas as the one that is standing behind us. And they've always come up with a court interdict, but they never come up with any solutions. And yet at the same time, when disasters strike, they're nowhere to be found. The next thing we're going to be getting letters from them and saying, what are you going to do for the remaining victims? And this is something that we now need to then start questioning going forward, to then say, are we going to allow a situation like this to continue? Or the rule of law that is aimed mainly at ensuring that there's law and order, there's protection of the majority of the people is going to be adhered to. That's what we need to be answering here.
A lot of people are now misplaced who were residing here. Your intervention from Democratic Alliance and you as a member of the provincial legislature?
Well, first of all, we are asking of the Premier and the MECs to then say this is a disaster that doesn't require them just appearing in front of cameras as they usually do. They come and appear in front of cameras, and once the cameras disappear, they also disappear. There's no further intervention. We've seen that in Alberton, where there was the gas leak. We've seen it here in the city, CBD, where they come up, there's big compasses in front of the media, but once the media disappear, they also disappear. We want to make sure that there is follow-ups from a provincial government perspective and the city of Johannesburg in terms of what are they going to do for these people. We will talk from what we can do from a Democratic Alliance point of view, privately what we can do for those people. But I think there is a government intervention that is much needed in terms of not only providing solution for the immediate people that are in this building or were in this building, but a long-term sustainable plan in terms of how we deal with all these hijacked buildings. We have been saying you cannot allow a situation where hijacked buildings become the norm. You walk down the same street here, you find people pouring oil in the middle of on the street. You find people fixing cars next to a saloon, next to a place that is selling food. Where is bylaw enforcement in this area? Because that is also contributing to the challenges that we're seeing here. But I think for now what we want to then do is to then find out what is the immediate solution for the people that are here. What is the plan to make sure that those that have perished will then be given proper send off, and then that will be assistance to the families that would have been affected. I think that's where, where we are. But there is a lot of questions that now needs to be answered to going forward from here.
Thank you so much. That Solim Simanga, he is a Democratic Alliance Gauteng legislature a member, having to sum up there to say that this is a ticking time bomb. He has identified a number of dilapidated buildings that have been hijacked. In mostly, we had officials having to say that it is foreigners who are actually hijacking these dilapidated buildings. Not really a good environment at all. I have attested that. I saw that, having to live in such condition as a person. He has even said, where is the Human Rights Commission? It should come and descend down here to intervene in matters like this instead of having to come against them as a Democratic Alliance when they try to remove people who hijack buildings of this nature. This is not really a good environment at all, having to raise children in such an environment where we understand that the place is actually became a drug den, and it's really not good at all. But we saw government officials, MECs, having to come here earlier on, and Solim Simanga having to call to government to say that it's time now for intervention. Although we are still here having to wait for these 73 bodies to be removed and be taken to various government mortuaries ahead of the identification process there, Masiho.
All right, let's go to Gareth Edwards as well, who is also on the other side of the building. It is a large building, as you may understand. Gareth, this building is one of many that have been occupied illegally in the city. And as Bafedile said, many authorities have been arriving there. Who have you spoken to, and what are they saying about this?
So I've had a chance to speak to Kenny Kunene a little bit earlier, currently the position of MMC for transport, but of course also a former mayor of Joburg, or the acting former mayor of Joburg, giving me his thoughts on what he thinks this is. In true Kenny Kunene style, he blames it squarely on two things. One of those is the property laws and who is allowed to own hijacked buildings in our country. Why aren't they being taken to task? Something he says when he was the acting mayor, he tried to fight off. And a little bit like we were hearing from Herman Mashaba from Action SA, he was shouted down. He wasn't able to get it right, is what he said to me. The second issue is, and we've heard this from him before, is that of the illegal foreigners. He doesn't agree with Home Affairs using the term undocumented foreigners. He's using illegal foreigners. He believes that is one of the main reasons, not the core reason, one of the main reasons that we find ourselves in this situation. But I want to just give you a sense of the scale of this building, Masego, because you were talking about it. 5 stories. I counted 22 windows on each floor. Here's the problem. Each of those rooms are subdivided, sometimes just in half with some dry walling, I understand. Other times it's divided into 4, into quarters. So you could have up to 8 people in a room that is designed only for 2 people. And that is part of the issue. I know Heidi referred to this. I had an EMS member with me earlier speaking off the record, but was speaking to me off camera, and he was very happy to tell me, though, that what they've got in the basement of this building, just imagine this for a second, in the basement of the building, normally where cars go, there are shacks inside the basement of the building. So you can just imagine what that is like. Illegal connections, a major concern. Running water, barely existent. As far as consistent heat, that could very well be an issue around what caused this fire. Still unconfirmed at this hour what the cause of the fire was. But let us not forget what it must have been like so early this morning. I had one witness with me who was explaining, watching himself. He was standing roughly where I'm standing at the moment with that view behind me, watching people jump out of those 3rd-story windows. There was nowhere to go. The security doors at the emergency exits, they were locked. At least 3 of them were locked. You can imagine, you're in the dark, there's a blaze, you can't find your loved ones, there is smoke, everyone is panicking, and many people I am hearing, had fallen to their death outside those windows because there was simply nowhere else to go. Even as I stand here with the baking sun above me, if there's a slight wisp of a wind coming past, I can actually smell the fire from inside. I can smell the ash I can smell the water, which it's a damp monkey smell, which would have been prevalent as a result of the fire department having to hose down that building behind me. So it's still very real, it's still very visceral. And I can see up the road, it's either curious onlookers, Masego, they're behind us, behind our position, or they are concerned members or family members or friends that are trying to come here and get more information. But it's still very real, the crisis and the tragedy and the drama from this morning.
All right, that was your eNCA lunchtime update from all angles with our team on the ground, including eNCA anchor Gareth Edwards, alongside our reporter Bafedile Moerane, and the reporter who was first on scene for us, that's Heidi Giokos.